But now there's always something going on in the royal household, and this week has been no different. Tina Turner passing has led to Prince William to open up about how the pop legend's music had an impact on his childhood. And the Duchess of Edinburgh has become the first royal to visit Baghdad. Meanwhile, according to the reports, Prince Harry has a room set aside in a luxury hotel where he can stay without his wife, Meghan Markle. Interesting. So each Saturday I like to give you a rundown, and who better to do that than the royal biographer herself, Angela Levin. Angela, welcome and thank you so much for joining me. Right, let's start, Angela. You look fabulous today. Should we start with Harry and Meghan? Should we go with that first, or...?
Now, let's pause here for a moment. A private hideaway, you say? A refuge from the grandeur of Montecito? One might assume that a sprawling estate with a library, cinema, gym, and not one, not two, but 13 bathrooms would provide ample sanctuary. Yet, it seems even the most opulent walls do not always offer peace. Historically, members of the royal family have had their private retreats, Balmoral, Sandringham, Highgrove. But those were places of legacy, woven into the fabric of their ancestry. This, however, feels different. If we are to believe these reports, Prince Harry's escape is not to a countryside estate rich with nostalgia, but to a hotel room, anonymous, transient, impermanent. And that tells us something, doesn't it? It raises questions about the state of affairs at home. Is it the weight of responsibility, the burden of the past, or perhaps an evolving realization of choices made? One can't help but recall the old saying, you can leave the palace, but the palace never leaves you. Distance, both literal and emotional, is a powerful indicator of the health of any relationship. And in this case, the distance appears to be widening. There was a time when they were inseparable, an us against the world duo. Their interviews, their public appearances, the grand Spotify and Netflix declarations, it was all about unity, partnership, shared purpose.
Okay, Harry and Meghan, if you like. I know you'd like to do that first. But what's interesting is they have to pay almost £117,000 council tax, the equivalent of council tax. And it's from their local area. And in it, it tells you what they've got. Library, cinema, gym, spa, pool, tennis court,
Wow.
7 bedrooms, 16 bathrooms reduced to 13. I don't know what's going on in there. But anyway, so why would somebody want to go and stay in a hotel to get away? I mean, it seems very odd. One of the hotels, it's permanently booked for him, which sounds to me that it's something where he can rush to if things are bad. Is she shouting at him? Is he feeling depressed? He's obviously going out. There's another hotel with a gym, which he also reserves places to. I think it's a real tragic situation because it means he can't get up for the kids if they need him. He won't be there first thing in the morning. I mean, it's a distance, isn't it? And the distance between them seems to get longer and wider.
But if we compare then and now, the contrast is striking. Body language experts have noted how their dynamic has shifted, less hand-holding, fewer synchronized movements, moments of hesitancy. It's subtle, but it's there. And now, this hotel arrangement adds yet another layer to the speculation. We must be careful, though. The public has been fed many narratives, some exaggerated, others conveniently cropped to fit an agenda. Still, when reports like this emerge, ones that don't originate from palace insiders but rather from the couple's own circles, it becomes harder to dismiss. While one royal figure is making headlines for seeking solitude, another is making history. The Duchess of Edinburgh, formerly Sophie Wessex, has stepped into uncharted territory as the first royal to visit Baghdad. And she did so with little fanfare, minimal fuss, and a quiet determination that deserves recognition. Sophie's presence there wasn't about red carpets or grand speeches. It was about listening, about standing in solidarity with women who face immense challenges. For years, she has been involved in advocacy against sexual violence in conflict zones. Yet, how often do we hear her name in the mainstream press? Not often enough, I'd argue. There is a lesson here. Some members of the royal family command attention through controversy. Others earn respect through consistent, under-the-radar service. The media spotlight doesn't always shine on the latter, but perhaps it should. King Charles and Queen Camilla, once a subject of great debate, now seemingly at ease in their roles. It's fascinating how time has softened the public's perception. The Irish visit was a testament to that. There was laughter, warmth, a touch on the back, simple gestures, yet deeply telling. Do you remember the days when every glance, every interaction between them was scrutinized? When whispers of the past followed them wherever they went? And yet, here they are, in a moment of quiet triumph. It speaks to endurance, to weather storms, to allow the years to settle matters that once seemed irreparable. For those who remember the Diana years, this shift is particularly remarkable. It doesn't erase the past, but it does highlight the nature of time's slow reconciliation. What was once scandalous is now accepted, and for many, that is the mark of a monarchy that adapts, however imperfectly, to the tides of change. We have a prince who seems to be drifting, a duchess quietly proving her worth, and a king and queen who have, against all odds, found a rhythm. The royal family, as always, remains a living paradox, tradition entangled with modern dilemmas, public duty at odds with private struggles. But if history teaches us anything, it is that the monarchy endures, not because it is immune to change, but because it learns, however reluctantly, to navigate it. The question is, who will emerge stronger in this latest chapter? Harry? Meghan? The institution itself? Only time will tell.
It's all very odd, isn't it? What about the Duchess of Edinburgh then in Baghdad? What's the story there?
It's absolutely wonderful. It's the first royal who's been to Baghdad, and she was talking about women who are violently treated there. Now, what's interesting is she didn't go with a scarf. She just had a normal hairdo. She was met by the president and by the prime minister, and she was there in secret for the 3 days. The Foreign Office had asked her to go, and she went there, and if you hear some of her speeches and you look at her, she's so calm, she's so sophisticated and so caring about women being, properly treated, that I thought it was a wonderful decision by the Foreign Office. And actually she seemed to do it in the small bits that they let us see very well. I mean, I think she needs to be much more respected in this country because there's so much going on that she just quietly gets on with her work. But I think we should acknowledge that she's travelling a lot, very loyal and doing a terrific job.
Yet, through perseverance and discretion, she emerged as one of the most steadfast members of the monarchy. There is a grace to the way she carries out her work. No grand proclamations, no dramatic interviews, just a steady commitment to the causes she champions. And in a world where visibility often equates to relevance, she reminds us that true influence doesn't always demand a microphone. For those who lived through the turbulence of the 1990s, the sight of Charles and Camilla embraced by warm crowds in Ireland might have once seemed unthinkable. And yet, here we are. Time has a remarkable way of reshaping narratives. Their journey is one of endurance. The whispers, the criticisms, the lingering ghosts of the past, they never truly disappear, do they? But they fade. And what remains is the simple reality of two people who, despite the odds, have settled into their roles with confidence. It's a reminder that public perception, like the monarchy itself, is not static. It shifts, it evolves, and as Charles begins his reign, he does so not as the embattled prince of scandalous headlines, but as a king who has, in his own way, outlasted the storm. And so, we find ourselves once again at the crossroads of tradition and transition. Some members of the royal family remain steadfast in their duties. Others seem to be in search of themselves. But the question remains, what does the future hold? Will Harry and Meghan find a path that feels truly their own, beyond the weight of both the crown and Hollywood expectations? Will the quieter royals, Sophie, even Princess Anne, finally receive the recognition they deserve? And as Charles settles into his kingship, will he redefine what it means to lead in the 21st century? For those of us who have witnessed decades of royal history, one thing is certain. The monarchy, for all its imperfections, has a remarkable ability to endure. The faces may change, The scandals may come and go, but the institution itself, like the grand halls of Buckingham Palace, stands firm.
And what about Charles and Camilla then? They're in Ireland, aren't they?
Yes, they're in Ireland, and they had a wonderful reception there. They went to open a new garden, especially for the coronation, and you could see the difference between them on that amazing day of the coronation and now, when they were relaxed. And there's one shot taken of Camilla putting her hand round her husband's back and smiling and laughing and talking to the. And they met two. One was called Camilla, one was called Charles. They were there with sort of phony crowns. And Camilla made a lot of jokes about that. And she's just very natural with children. And you could see, we've done it, mate. And they can now relax and get on tremendously well and do the job.
And what about Prince William and Tina Turner?
Yeah. This is very, very touching because he says, they listened to it in the car, and he says it felt like a real family moment. And you think, and my mother should be driving along singing on the top of her voice. We'd even get the policeman in the car. He'd be occasionally singing along as well. So that shows that's before they split, Diana and Charles split, because then she didn't have a protection officer on her insistence. But I think that he says it brings back lots of memories of my mother. And you see his memories are positive, they're nice, they're warm, and very, very moving.
Well, it's lovely, isn't it? Listen, Angela Levin, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me. That is the fabulous royal biographer, Angela Levin.
What do you make of all this? Do you see the monarchy adapting to the times, or do you believe the cracks are deepening? We are left with more questions than answers. But perhaps that is the nature of monarchy itself, an ever-evolving institution, shifting between tradition and the demands of the present. Prince Harry stands at a crossroads, caught between the past he left behind and the future he is still trying to define. Meghan Markle, once a dominant force in the media landscape, now moves with greater caution, leaving room for speculation about her next move. Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, continues her work with quiet dignity, proving that significance is not always measured in headlines. And Charles and Camilla, they have weathered storms that once seemed insurmountable, finding in each other a steadiness that time has softened into acceptance. Yet, beyond these individual narratives, the monarchy itself remains the true focal point. It is neither as fragile as its critics suggest nor as invincible as its most ardent supporters believe. It is an institution defined by survival, one that bends but does not break, that reshapes itself with each passing era. But what of its relevance? Will future generations see value in its endurance, or will they, like so many before them, question its place in a rapidly changing world? That is a question only time can answer. For those of us who have watched the Crown story unfold across decades, through triumphs, scandals, and transformations, we know this much. No matter how turbulent the tides, the monarchy has a way of finding its footing. Whether it thrives or merely survives, that will depend on those who bear its weight. Drop your comment below. See you in the next video.